UFC London happened yesterday. It ended up being a pretty decent card overall. I went 9-6 on predictions, which isn't too bad. But today I'm going to be giving you guys some fights that I would like to see next. First off, I would like to see Chris Duncan versus Jordan Leavitt. Now, I'm a believer in Chris Duncan. I think he can do pretty good, but it is the lightweight division, and I don't know if he'll be able to make it to that top 15. So I think Jordan Leavitt is a perfect test for him. Jordan Leavitt is, I don't want to say right outside the top 15, but he is in the higher level of the unranked UFC lightweights. So I think that this would be a perfect test for Chris Duncan. And to be honest, I think it's a decently even fight, anyways. I would probably lean towards Chris Duncan, but the stats are similar. Like they're similar in height. They've both not fought the greatest of competition. They have the exact same reach. So I think that this is the perfect fight to make next. Next up, I want to make Ketlen Vieira versus Julianna Pena. I know that people are saying that Julianna Pena is going to fight for the vacant title next, but to be honest, I really don't like that. I don't think that she deserves it coming off of a loss. And I think that Ketlen Vieira is the perfect fight to make for her, especially after her win last night. Ketlen Vieira is now coming off a win over Pannie Kianzad. And yeah, like I said, this is the fight to make for who should get the title shot next. I'm thinking the vacant title fight will probably be something like Myra Bueno Silva versus Raquel Pennington or something along those lines. But I think that this is a good title eliminator for who's going to fight the winner of that. Next up, Bryan Barberena. He lost his fight last night to Makhmud Muradov, but I think that Abus Magomedov is honestly a great matchup for him as long as he's planning on staying at middleweight. So Bryan Barberena has dropped his last three fights, but they've all been a decent competition, and he is still a pretty decent fighter. And I know people are acting like Abus Magomedov is like ranked highly out of the unranked middleweights, but the truth is he really isn't. Like his one UFC win is against Dustin Stoltzfus. So just because he fought, I think it was number 7 ranked at the time, Sean Strickland, does not mean that he is in the higher pool of the unranked UFC middleweights. Like he's still fairly low ranked for the unranked guys. And also, his cardio was terrible when he fought Sean Strickland. So I think that Bryan Barberena is the perfect like test for him because Bryan Barberena, although he does look like Ben Askren a little bit in the body, like he pushes a pretty decent pace and he doesn't gas too hard, like not nearly as bad as Abus Magomedov, and he is pretty hard to finish. So, yeah, like I said, this is 100% the fight to make, in my opinion. It's a great test for both of them to see how the rest of their career is going to go. Now, for the winner of that fight, Makhmud Muradov. He is 1-2 in his last three fights, but like I said, it's been a good competition. He picked up his win last night against Bryan Barberena, and then his two losses. One was against Gerald Mearshart, which is a bit of an iffy loss, to be fair, but his other loss was against Caio Borralho. Like you can't really say anything bad about that. And he did look good last night, so I think you throw him not in the rank guys yet, but in the guys who are just outside the rankings, and I think Edmen Shahbazian is that guy to give it to. They both have identical stats, both 6'2", both have 75-inch reaches. Edmen Shahbazian hasn't looked the greatest lately. He just lost to Anthony Hernandez, and I think he's like 1-3 in his last four. But much like these other guys in these videos, he's been fighting good competition. So I think that this is the perfect step down for Edmen and the perfect step up for Muradov. And it'll just make for a great fight. Now, Joel Alvarez versus Jalin Turner. I'm still I still kind of believe in Jalin Turner. Like I do believe he's a good fighter, and I do believe that he is top 15 level, obviously, like he's already there. But the truth is he kind of fluked his way into the top 15. Like his last two wins are against Jamie Malarkey, who's just average, and then he got into the top 15 by beating Brad Riddell, who has lost his last 3 fights and hasn't looked good in any of those 3 fights. Maybe the Fiziev fight he looked okay, but definitely his last 2 fights he has not looked good in. So I think that Joel Alvarez is deserving of a ranked fighter. He looked really good. He was piecing up Giacchisi in that first round. And in the second round, although there was a head clash that kind of ended up resulting in the submission finish, Joel Alvarez would have won anyway, and he looked good. I think this is a great fight to make. Again, this is assuming that Jalin Turner stays at lightweight. And that's another point I want to make. These are the 2 biggest lightweights that you can think of. Like, again, their stats are identical. 6'3" for each of them. Both have 77-inch reaches, and they're fighting at 155 pounds. Like, that's absolutely insane. Make me this fight. Make it for UFC 295 in MSG. I think that's perfect. Now, Davey Grant. I don't want to say he got robbed, but I'm gonna say he got robbed. Like, he definitely beat Daniel Marcos. I've looked through so many comment sections and talked to so many people, and I don't know anyone who agrees with those 2 judges who gave it to Daniel Marcos. Like, the truth is, Davey Grant won that fight, which is why I don't want to give him a layup. Like, I don't want to give him a bum, but I think he should be rewarded for always bringing great fights, and gets robbed quite a bit too. So I think he should be rewarded with getting another veteran to fight, maybe on the prelims of a pay-per-view or opening up the main card of a fight night. I think this is a great fight to make. Davey Grant versus Rani Yahya. I would definitely lean Davey Grant's way, but like I said, it's not exactly a layup for him. Like, it's still a good fight between 2 veterans. Stats are pretty close. And yeah, make me this fight next. Now, Daniel Marcos. Although I did think Davey Grant won, I must admit Daniel Marcos did look pretty good. Okay, he did look pretty good against Davey Grant, but he's definitely not ready for the ranked guys yet. Which is why I want to give him another veteran in Douglas Silva de Andrade. Now, Douglas Silva de Andrade, in my eyes, is in like that same pool as Davey Grant. Like, they're the like just outside the rankings guys. They're both very good. They both have good wins. I believe they've both beaten Marlon Vera. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that they've both beaten Marlon Vera. So I think that you should really make this fight, because it's not a step up for Daniel Marcos, but it's not a step down for Daniel Marcos. It's kind of like a fight of like, okay, prove to me that you're gonna improve from that Davey Grant fight. Prove to me that you can beat these tricky veterans, and then we'll move on from there. Maybe if you win this fight, we'll give you a ranked opponent, or that guy who would be like ranked 16, like that guy who would be right there. Next up, both of these guys fought on this card. They were scheduled to fight sometime earlier, and let's make Lerone Murphy versus Nathaniel Wood. This is a very close fight. They're both hyped up prospects. I honestly believe a little more in Nathaniel Wood than I do Lerone Murphy, but Nathaniel Wood, he is pretty small for that featherweight division. It is true. But nonetheless, this is a great fight to make. Lerone Murphy has the height and reach advantage, but I think Nathaniel Wood is quicker, and Lerone Murphy is not exactly proven yet. Like, he is good. He's definitely good. Don't get me wrong. He's 13-0, 5-0 in the UFC, never lost. But there is going to be a guy to beat him. Like, I know 100% he's not staying undefeated his whole career. And in my eyes, this is a 50-50 fight, which makes it really exciting for the fans. It's like, is he going to lose that O? Which prospect is going to rise to the occasion and then start looking at a ranked fight next? Perfect fight to make. Now, Andre Fili, he lost to Lerone Murphy in the main card last night, but he did look good. He knocked down Lerone Murphy twice, I believe, once in the first and once in the second. I've seen some people trying to argue the decision. I really don't think it's that arguable. Like, I think Lerone Murphy won fair and square. But Andre Fili definitely still is, like, he's still a good fighter. He, like, if the rankings went any further, he'd probably be top 20, top 25 in the featherweight division. And that's the same with Nate Landwehr. Just lost to Dan Ige about a month ago on that Oliveira card, on that Nunes Aldana card, I should say. And yeah, like the scheduling works. They both took damage in their fight. Nate Landwehr maybe took a little more damage than Andre Fili did. And now to think of it, they took fairly similar damage. So yeah, I said, they're on the same schedule. They're both dogs. They're both gonna bring a fight no matter what. You know it's gonna be a good fight. So let's get this on. I'm thinking like last fight of the early prelims, or like opening up the prelims to a pay-per-view card. Maybe in December, UFC 296. Who knows? Now, I'll admit, even this fight, I'm not the biggest fan of, but there really isn't much to do for Andre Muniz. He's lost his last two fights now. Both of them, surprisingly, he got out grappled in. He lost to Brendan Allen by submission, which was very surprising. And then yesterday, it wasn't so surprising that he got out grappled yesterday. I mean, it's Paul Craig that you're fighting, but it is surprising that he got out grappled two fights in a row and how easily it happened. I mean, this is the guy who beat Jacare Souza. So I think you give him Bruno Silva. Like I said, Bruno Silva fought maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. I don't exactly, or it was the Emmett Furia card. Yeah, that's the card it was on. But anyways, they're on similar schedules. Bruno Silva is also kind of on that, like, I don't want to say downfall because he's still only had 7 fights in the UFC, but he is 1-3 in his last 4 fights. But he is still like he's pretty good. Like he took Alex Pereira to decision. He knocked out Brad Tavares in his last win, and he was hurting Brendan Allen last fight. So it's not like this is some chump that we're giving an Andre Muniz for like a free layup. Like it's not like Andre Muniz is gonna 100% win this fight. No, like Bruno Silva could put him away. I would definitely lean towards Andre Muniz, but Bruno Silva could make it happen. So I'd like to see this fight. I believe there's a fight night coming up in Sao Paulo sometime in November. It might be a bit of a quick turnaround for these guys, but if you can, it would be awesome to place it on that card. I mean, the Brazilians don't lose either way. One guy's gonna win. Brazilians are happy either way. Could make this like maybe the fourth fight, like the fourth last fight on the main card. Maybe it opens up the main card. But yeah, let's try and get this fight in Sao Paulo. Now, Paul Craig, my guy, my favorite light heavyweight in the UFC. Now, my favorite middleweight in the UFC. He looked great yesterday. He did get tagged a little bit, but he didn't really get wobbled. Definitely didn't get knocked down. And he outgrappled Andre Muniz, which I know I kind of went against this last time. I said it is surprising how he's getting outgrappled. Maybe he's an overrated grappler, but either way, it's if you can outgrapple Andre Muniz, you're an excellent grappler, which we already knew from Paul Craig. What was most surprising to me was how Paul Craig yesterday he spent a lot of time on top, which very rarely happens. I think he went 2 for 2 on takedowns, 100% takedown accuracy, which is crazy. That does not happen a lot in Paul Craig fights. He's usually the one pulling guard and playing bottom, and he ended the fight with his elbows. Like although it was ground and pound, he won by TKO. Maybe middleweight really just is his weight class. He looked a little bit drained at the weigh-ins, and like even I was thinking this might not be the greatest, but I mean, he wasn't lying. He was telling the truth when he said maybe his whole career he was a light heavyweight or he was a middleweight trying to be a light heavyweight. But anyway, I think the perfect fight for him is Jack Hermansson. Jack Hermansson is also an excellent grappler himself. He beat Chris Curtis not in his last fight, 2 fights ago. His last fight he dropped to Roman Dolidze. I think he's ranked number 11, either number 10, number 11, maybe number 12. But either way, this is like number 11 versus number 14, something along those lines. And I think it's the perfect fight to make. I don't want to see Paul Craig fighting behind him because with an excellent win like that yesterday and he's not getting any younger, let's try to start pushing him towards the top. So let's get him that number 11 ranked fight in Jack Hermansson. It's a close fight. Hermansson's definitely better on the feet, but on the ground, although Hermansson is also very, very good on the ground, got to give it to Paul Craig. So this is, like I said, even though Hermansson is great on the ground, this is almost like that striker versus grappler matchup that everyone loves to see. So let's make this fight. Molly Mccann, she lost. Not only did she lose, she lost dominantly and quickly. Like she got armbarred maybe 2 minutes into the fight. And also, she showed her a huge lack of grappling IQ in that fight, I found. Even when she was like when she was in this position in the armbar where she was holding her bicep or whatever, she rolled herself into the armbar. Like she did a front roll into the cage and didn't roll out of the armbar. She rolled herself into the armbar. So I'm not going to say Molly McCann's done, but 100% she's not the hype that everyone was saying to be. I think you need to give Molly McCann a can. And that can that you give to her is Mandy Bohm. Like Mandy Bohm, honestly, she won her last fight based off of fouls. Like she's really not good. She's 1-2 in the UFC, but she should be like 0-3 in the UFC. Not should be with all the point deductions she won her last fight, but if it wasn't for those fouls, she definitely would be 0-3 in the UFC. So I think this is the perfect fight to make. It's do or die for Molly McCann. I'm not trying to give her a layup, but I am kind of trying to give her a layup at the same time because the truth is she needs to win. Like if she loses this next fight, she's done. Maybe the UFC will keep giving her fights. Maybe they'll hesitate to cut her because she is still a personality and she is still like Patty Pimblett's best friend and all that. But either way, this is a winnable fight for Molly McCann. She should definitely win. But like I said, it's do or die. If she loses to Mandy Bohm, she's done. Like completely done. I wouldn't want to see her fight again. Now, Mandy Bohm does have the height and reach advantage by a lot. She has a 9-inch reach advantage, but still, like, there's no way Molly McCann should lose to this girl. I know we said that last night as well, but really, there's no way that Molly McCann should lose to this girl. So you got to make this fight, in my opinion. If you're the UFC, they already tried to give her a layup yesterday. Now you need to give her an even easier layup. Like she needs this win bad. I can't explain it enough. Now, Julia Storyalenko versus Antonina Shevchenko. Although everyone's clowning Molly McCann, even though like I did it too, literally like 10 seconds ago, but Julia Storyalenko, for someone who's now 2-5 in the UFC, she really isn't all that bad. Like she has a win over Jessica Rose Clark as well, who's okay. Like Julia Storyalenko to me is like I'm not gonna say she's decent, but it's not like she's the worst fighter in her division. Like she's no Mandy Bohm. So it's not that great. And the armbar is her move, to be fair, and that is what she caught Molly McCann in. But if anything, that does kind of make it even worse because it's like, Molly, you had one move to defend against. But either way, back to this fight. Antonina Shevchenko, she hasn't fought in, I could be wrong, but I think her last fight was against Courtney Casey, maybe like a year ago. I don't know, mate. Is she retired? I don't know. But I'm 99% sure she's still in the UFC. She's not overly good, but because of that Shevchenko name, she she doesn't get hype, but like people know of her. So I think this is a great fight for Julia Storyalenko to, even though now she's 2-5 in the UFC, maybe she's gonna have some hype now because of her win over Molly McCann. So honestly, I don't think this is a terrible fight to make at all. I think this is exactly what the UFC matchmakers should be looking to do. If she goes out there and beats, obviously not Valentina Shevchenko, but she goes and beats a Shevchenko, that could just add even more to the hype. So this is perfect. Now in the main event, Marcin Tybura lost to Tom Aspinall. Big surprise. Um, but Marcin Tybura, although he got dominated and lost in like a minute and a half, he's still a pretty decent fighter. Like what is he now? 8-2 in his last 10 fights, 7-2 in his last 9 fights, something like that. But he has been on a pretty decent streak, other than that Volkov loss and that Aspinall loss that happened yesterday. He was on a pretty decent streak. So I think in the rankings, perfect. I think this is ranked 12 Jairzinho Rosenstrike and ranked 10 against Marcin Tybura. So this is the perfect fight to make. Makes sense rankings wise. Rosenstrike maybe fought a month and a half ago, maybe. So timing wise, it makes pretty good sense as well. I know Tybura, he got knocked down and everything, he got TKO'd, but he didn't take like crazy damage. Like it's not like he got beat up over 5 rounds. So I think you can make this fight in like, I don't know, 5 months time. Maybe in December, maybe you make it in January next year. Maybe even they'll be back in time for late November. You never know. But these are two big heavyweights that, although Marcin Tybura, he is a bit more of like a grappler, a wrestler, he can still stand and bang, and Rosenstrike, that's his game. So you could see a quick KO in this fight. You could see some good wrestling from Tybura. I think the fans would win this fight either way. And like I've said, this is 100% perfect fight to make. Now, the last fight that I want to make is Tom Aspinall versus Sergey Pavlovich. Now, Tom Aspinall, like, man, that guy's good. He looked incredible. Like, I honestly think, in my opinion, John Jones and Sergey Pavlovich would be the hardest fight for him. But I think on his right night, he can beat any heavyweight in the UFC. I know that's a crazy statement, but like, it's not like he's fighting cans. He beat Tybura, who's a good fighter. He beat Volkov, who's a good fighter. He busted his knee against Blades. We never got to see how that fight played out, which is sad. But he has a win over Sergey Spivak as well. I think it was a first round TKO. Might have been second round, but I'm pretty sure it was a first round TKO. And now Sergey Pavlovich is fighting the number one ranked contender in the UFC heavyweight division. So Tom Aspinall is getting wins over these really good fighters, and so is Sergey Pavlovich. They're both 6-1 in the UFC. Sergey Pavlovich lost his very first fight on short notice by getting out wrestled, not the hugest deal, and Tom Aspinall's only UFC loss is from blowing out his knee. Now, what I think the UFC matchmakers need to do for this one is really ask John Jones, like, are you definitely gonna retire after that Stipe fight? Because if he is gonna retire, I'd honestly say we want to see these guys back sooner, obviously, but I'd honestly say maybe wait till February, March next year, and then make this fight for the vacant title if John Jones really is that serious about retiring. Now, if he's not, I think this would be a great either co-main or not co-main event. I think that's going to be Leon versus Colby, but this would be a great featured fight to have on the card. So the winner can then call out John Jones if he's not going to retire. But either way, this is the fight to make. I know Tom Aspinall called out the winner of Cyril Gahn versus Sergey Spivak, which to me makes me believe that he thinks Gahn's going to win, because why would he want to fight Spivak if he's already demolished him like 3-4 fights ago? But yeah, 100% this is a great fight to make. If Cyril Gahn does win, maybe you can do that too. But I know that this is what the fans want, and this is what excites the fans. And this is the true either title fight, vacant title fight, or title eliminator in my eyes. So, with that being said, I thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if there's any other fights that you would like to see, and I would love to hear from you guys. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.